Thank you very much, all of you, for coming here. I will not make a long introductory speech. I am here, as well as you colleagues, to listen to what NGOs and civil society have to tell us from a country that is very often here in Strasbourg the subject to debate, which is Azerbaijan. And without losing any more time, I'd like to give the floor first to Mrs. Wafa Mammadova. You might, or we might all know very well her husband, Mr. İlqar Məmmədov, who unfortunately is at the moment in prison in Azerbaijan, and I would like to express all my sympathy to his wife, and thank you for her courage to come here and to speak up and to share with us her thoughts and views. Thank you very much.
Все в Совете Европы и Евросуд, и Генеральный секретарь, и Комитет министров, и Парламентская ассамблея, и Конгресс признали его политзаключенным.
Everyone in the Council of Europe, and the European Court, and the Secretary General, and the Committee of Ministers, and the Parliamentary Assembly, and Congress has recognized him as a political prisoner.
Поэтому цель моего визита просто узнать, почему при таком единогласии в сердце нашей европейской демократии он все еще за решеткой.
Therefore, the purpose of my visit is to find out why, with this unanimity in the heart of the European democracy, he is still behind bars.
Во многих странах Совета Европы срок мандата членов парламента не больше 4 лет. За 4 года депутат должен показать себя. За свои качества он будет избран снова или проиграет выборы.
In many member states of the Council of Europe, the term limit for members of parliament is not more than 4 years. For 4 years, a deputy must demonstrate his positions and character. He will then be elected again or lose the elections.
Но почему-то 4 лет не хватило парламентской ассамблеи Совета Европы, чтобы проявить свои лучшие качества.
However, for some reason, for 4 years, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe has been unable to show its best quality.
Мой муж республиканец. Он возглавил движение против концентрации власти в руках одной семьи. За это его посадили. А потом наши законы стали еще более монархическими.
My husband is a Republican, and he led the movement against consolidating a concentration of power in the hands of one family. For this, he was put in prison. Furthermore, our laws became even more monarchical.
Выходит, те, кто арестовали Илгара, показали за 4 года, что у них на уме. А парламентская ассамблея даже не знает, как применить свой коллективный ум. Хотелось бы понять, почему.
It turns out that the men who arrested Ilgar have shown in these 4 years what they have in mind, and the Parliamentary Assembly has not even figured out how to employ its collective will on the issue. I would like to understand why.
За эти годы пострадали и другие люди, ходившие к нам домой. Расул Джафаров отсидел 1,5 года, Натик Джафарлы отсидел месяц. Другие активисты, республиканцы, провели недели под административным арестом. Азеру Гасымлы запрещен выезд из страны. Некоторым другим из гостей нашего дома пришлось покинуть страну.
Over the years, other people who came to our home were injured. For example, Rasul Jafar, who is also sitting in this room, he has served 1.5 years in prison, and Natip Jafarli served a month, while other Republican activists spent weeks under administrative arrest. Azer Gassouri is prohibited from leaving the country. Some of other guests had to leave the country.
Ни один из этих фактов преследования не связан с уголовным делом против моего мужа. Для каждого республиканца власти придумывают отдельную причину.
None of these cases of harassment is connected with the criminal case against my husband. For every Republican, authorities have come up with a separate reason.
Но вот обоих адвокатов Илгара власти наказали из-за их выступлений на его суде. Халида Багирова исключили из коллегии адвокатов, а Фуада Агаева оштрафовали.
Also, both of Ilgar's lawyers were punished because of their speeches at his trial. Khalid Bagirov was expelled from the Bar Association, and Fuad Agaev was fined.
Они отважные люди. В условиях, когда власти так сильно обозлены на моего мужа, они продолжают защищать и в общественной жизни, и в Европейском суде.
They are brave people. In conditions when the authorities are so angry at my husband, they continue to defend him, both in public life and in the European Court.
Но Илгар не хочет подвергать своего защитника в Европейском суде все новым опасностям. Поэтому те в парламентской ассамблее, кто предлагают дождаться решения Евросуда по второй нашей жалобе, поступают нечестно. В первом решении суда ясно написано, что власти преследуют Илгара по политическим мотивам. Эти мотивы с 2013 года никуда не исчезли и даже усилились.
Still, Ilgar doesn't want to expose his defenders in the European Court to all new risks. Therefore, those in the Parliamentary Assembly who aim to wait for the decision of the European Court on our second complaint are acting dishonestly. In the first court decision, it's clearly written that the authorities are persecuting Ilgar for political reasons. These motives have not faded since 2013 and have even intensified.
Конечно, без поддержки Совета Европы нам было бы труднее. Илгар знает, делегации многих стран активно защищают на Комитете министров и в ПАСЕ идею его освобождения. Мы очень благодарны генеральному секретарю Ягланду за его большие личные усилия по реализации решения Европейского суда.
Of course, without the support of the Council of Europe, it would be more difficult for us. Ilgar knows the delegations of many countries actively demand the idea of his release in the Committee of Ministers and in the Parliamentary Assembly. We are very grateful to the Secretary General Jagland for his great personal efforts to implement the decision of the European Court of Justice.
Мы с Илгаром стали семьей 16 лет назад. Столько же Азербайджан входит в Совет Европы. Более четверти этого времени я посещаю его в тюрьме. Я не спрашиваю себя, зачем я выходила замуж за политика, а спрашиваю у парламентской ассамблеи, зачем Азербайджан принимали в Совет Европы. Спасибо за внимание.
Ilgar and I became a family 16 years ago, as long as Azerbaijan has been a member of the Council of Europe. More than a quarter of this time, I have had to visit him in prison. I do not ask myself why I'm married to a politician, but I ask the Parliamentary Assembly, why was Azerbaijan accepted into the Council of Europe? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Mammadova. And sometimes, as a member of Parliament and as a member of the Assembly here, I feel helpless. And therefore, I know that it's going to be very little consolation for you. But I want to assure you our deep sympathy and our solidarity with you and your husband. And be assured that we will do whatever we can as members of Parliament to have PACE intensify its fight for the release of political prisoners and for restoring and keeping up democracy and rule of law in its member countries. Before I give the floor to Mr. Brasseur, who could maybe take a conclusion afterwards, I would like to move on to our next speaker, who is Mr. Emin Milli from Meganti.
Thank you very much. You know, 16 years ago, when Azerbaijan became member of the Council of Europe, I was studying European studies in Saarbrücken. which is not far away from Strasbourg, and I actually made it personally to be at this occasion here in this building. And back then I was very, very young man who had big aspirations, dreams, and I was dreaming that this is just one more step towards integration, full integration of Azerbaijan, you know, to the European Union, to NATO. I even had a very tough discussion with my professor who said that Azerbaijan will never become a member of the European Union, and I was telling him, look, you said that in 1989 in Humboldt University in Berlin, students asked you that, will Germany ever be united? And you said no, and in 1 year Germany was united. And I remember many, many years later, 10 years later, I was sitting personally in jail in Azerbaijan, so Azerbaijan was still not a member of the European Union, of the Council of Europe. No, Azerbaijan was member of the Council of Europe, but was not member of the European Union. The same year, my father has died because he was an old man and he was very sad that his son is sitting in jail just for telling the truth. Today we have here Vafa Mammadova, the wife of İlqar Məmmədov, who sits almost 5 years now, more than 4 years in jail. And we have another speaker, Emin Huseynov, his brother Mehman Huseynov, who is also a very famous blogger. He sits in jail. And we're in the middle of the worst corruption scandal in the history of Council of Europe. Unfortunately, it was not the process when Azerbaijan integrated into European family of states, but what happened instead, that Azerbaijani government managed to integrate or corrupt quite many members of Parliamentary Assembly in Council of Europe who voted down in 2013 the resolution on political prisoners in Azerbaijan. And here we are. Today, it is no secret that there was, according to the witness of a former Azerbaijan ambassador actually in the Council of Europe, who is now in exile in Brussels, that there have been 30 million euros which have been distributed in this building to various European politicians. And I'm very, very glad that today, or not today, that a couple of days ago, there was a decision, finally, better late than never, that 3 experts, independent experts, will investigate this matter. And I think that the best thing that you can do for democracy and freedom in Azerbaijan is to clean your own house. Because unfortunately, all the people who thought that Azerbaijan doesn't matter, President Aliyev proved you that ignoring one small dictator at the periphery of Europe can matter so much that it can discredit absolutely the credibility of #1 human rights institution in Europe. And I think that every European politician should take this matter very close to his heart. Is not a matter of interest of one state, or is really about the project of Europe, which is, as you know, is globally under attack. But don't forget that this attack was starting also from a very small country on the periphery of Europe that managed to, unfortunately, to create a situation where most of European newspapers, I was reading this last days, were reporting about this scandal regarding bribing of Volonté, who was the leader of European People's Party, the biggest fraction in PASE. And it really, really discredits the Council of Europe, the European idea, and everything that I think that Europe and European Union and Council of Europe are standing for. Meydan TV, I represent here media, and my own journalists, my friends, often criticize me that my speeches are too political. I don't speak as a representative of the independent media, but I speak as politician. I want to apologize for this. Sometimes I have to deliver messages that actually not me, but Vafa Mammadov's husband, İlqar Məmmədov, should deliver. But he cannot deliver it because he's in jail. And he knows that there is a clear decision of European Court on Human Rights. He should be released, unconditionally. There can be no any thought about it, but unfortunately Azerbaijan is ignoring this decision as well. And again, it undermines this institution. As representative of Meydan TV, I would like to say also a couple of words. Today, while we're sitting here, there is a court taking trial taking place in Azerbaijan, and Azerbaijan government officially is trying to shut down, to block Meydan TV, also Radio Liberty, Azadlık newspaper, Turan TV, so the last independent media outlets in Azerbaijan. Actually, all of them have been blocked already several months ago, and they want now just to legalize their decisions that, of course, is against any kind of rule of law. We have journalists like Seymur Hazi, like Mehman Huseynov, very famous blogger in Azerbaijan, who were exposing corruption and very effectively, but today they're also in jail. No matter you are a journalist, politician, you can be even ordinary Azerbaijan. If you didn't pay bribe to officials when they asked you, you can end up in jail. Azerbaijan today is, in Freedom Report, Freedom Index of Reports Without Borders, Freedom of Press Index shows that Azerbaijan is now, situation in Azerbaijan is one of the worst in the world. We have many journalists in jail, many politicians, activists, many people who are in jail just because, they believe in certain ideas and values and have not committed any crimes. And this is the Azerbaijan we are today. So unfortunately, 16 years after witnessing this historic moment of Azerbaijan becoming the member of the Council of Europe, we have to say that it was Azerbaijan who managed to really integrate Council of Europe and undermine it, and not Council of Europe which managed to have influence and to transform Azerbaijan into a democratic country. As the last word, I would like also to say that the government of Azerbaijan has a very interesting inclination to use the fact that about 20% of Azerbaijan territories are occupied as the justification for violating human rights in Azerbaijan. So right now, when we're having this event here, there is a protest organized by paid agents of this government outside of the Council of Europe who are demanding liberation of occupied territories of Azerbaijan. I would like for the record to state here that first of all, Council of Europe is an institution that demanded liberation of occupied territories. Of course, we think that it's very important to liberate these occupied territories. But the government shouldn't use this as kind of tool to attack human rights activists, politicians, everyone who shows a different opinion, because it's first of all crime against people of Azerbaijan. It's crime against all the journalists, all the activists, all the politicians who are in jail in Azerbaijan, and it's also crime against every Azerbaijani citizen, because this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable, I would like to say at the end, if we as people of Azerbaijan want to liberate occupied territories, if we as people of Azerbaijan would like the Council of Europe and the world to help us, then first of all, we need to ensure that every citizen of Azerbaijan, including Armenians, including all other ethnicities, should feel that Azerbaijan is a very developed, very secure place where human rights are observed. So what the government of Azerbaijan is doing every time to kind of try to discredit democratic movement and human rights movement is absurd. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Emin. Thank you for your intervention, and be assured that you did not trespass your competences in your intervention. Your message was clear and strong, and I think here it was heard. And also, don't apologize. Don't let anyone tell you you shouldn't be political. Tell those that it's exactly politics that is silencing your society. Thank you again, and I'll come to our next speaker, which is Emin Husseinov from the Institute for Reporters' Freedom and Safety.
Thank you, Mr. Kruton, and thank you, Madam Brasov, for help us organize this event. And I want to start my speech with very general issues. Why this crackdown continued when our country, full member of Council of Europe since 2001? I just want to quickly remind, since from 2001, Azerbaijani government and Aliyev regime changed 3 times constitution. Last 2 changes happened in 2009 and 2016, and especially after 2009 when Aliyev cut 2 presidential term limits from our constitution, he opened to his door for stay on the presidential position without any limitation. And in 2016, in September, Aliyev again initiated referendum, and after this referendum, he's able to delegate presidential power to his wife, and that's clear message why we have all of this problem. This is systemic nepotism, which is this system created in our country from last 15 years. But I want also remind for Azerbaijani government always use this house from legitimate issues which is related with referendums, with parliamentary elections, and with presidential elections. When OSCE, ODIHR, and European Parliament understand it is impossible to make clear and fair observation missions, sometimes Azerbaijani government somehow finds solution, invited to Azerbaijan observation missions, and even half of these members of this observation mission never agree for this election free and fair. Some, I think, MPs which have some interest, maybe state interest, make clear statement for this democratic election. And that's after Mr. Luka Volonte case, we see for something happen wrong in this house. And that's why Azerbaijani civil society established coalition in the middle of January, and we started calculating signatures to make a public call to start investigations of this corruption issue, which is involved Luka Volonte and Mr. Elhan Süleymanov, one of the members of Azerbaijan delegation. And just when we started this campaign in Azerbaijan, my brother kidnapped illegally by the police. More than 12 hours he spent in the police station, tortured. And after international attention, he released. And one of the reasons why he released, because after torture he had serious problem with his health, and police called to the ambulance service, and ambulance come and returned back his life. He released. He's not arrested on this day, but when he released, he almost all of these issues, what's happened with him, he said, I'm extremely tortured by this police. And few weeks later, he's arrested with defamation case, because police says so. Head of the police department from Nasimir district, from Baku city, applied to the court, and he said for Mehman lie. We didn't torture him, and judge decided to arrest him for 2 years. But you ask for why Mehman Hüseynov, very popular blogger, which has 350 followers only in Facebook and 150,000 in Instagram, like 500,000 Azerbaijanis follow with him every day. Why is he arrested with this defamation case? I tell you, week before his arrest, Mehman prepared public opinion video survey regarding delegation of vice president's position from husband to wife, from Mr. Aliyev, Ilham Aliyev, to his wife, First Lady Mehriban Aliyev. And when he prepared this satirical survey on the street, that is like red line, and government decides, oh, enough is enough, we must isolate him. And he arrested for 2 years. And Mehman is not only blogger, he's also head of the journalist union in Azerbaijan. He's chairman, elected chairman of Institute for Reporters, Freedom and Safety. I'm like co-founder. I'm elected Azerbaijan in 2014. I'm maybe one like in this human rights defenders, which is advocate for human rights also in this house since from 2007, and which is not arrested like my colleague Anar Mehmetli, Rasul Jafarov, Khadija Ismailova, Leyla Yunus, or Intigam Aliyev. I'm just happy guy, which is find solution to protect himself in the Swiss embassy. I spent 10 months under diplomatic protection in Swiss embassy in Baku, and I have lucky end in my story. I'm evacuated by Swiss government from Azerbaijan to the Switzerland, where I'm living right now as like political refugees. But my brother and dozens other strong, prominent human rights defenders and journalists have always risked to lose his life. Person which has replaced me on the chairman position, Rasim Aliyev, he killed exactly in the same date, 1 year later, when he delivered me to Swiss embassy. And it's the government which has orchestrated all of these issues, especially to show to all the government, okay, if one of you finds solution with successful escape, another one who is helping have strong penalty like death. And Mehman, which has replaced Rasim right now in the prison, and we have more than 150 political prisoners right now. We have other Azerbaijani colleagues, human rights defenders, which is sitting in this house, and if media interested name by name, who is this, please ask these people. I won't just say again, main of the reason of this crackdown is this corruption in country, and when one ruling family occupied country, not for 5, for 10 years. We have this regime from last more than 35 years, even when the Soviet Union destroyed. And Council of Europe must clearly show to Azerbaijan and other authoritarian countries, for guys, European values is not when one family occupies ruling floor forever. European value when nations have solution for peaceful and democratic transition. And on this remarks, I want to finish my speech, and I'm able to respond to any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Emin, also for your testimonial and the explanations you gave us. What you tell us makes me think of just a very, very bad movie that we're in, and it is to me inconceivable that the things that you report here, that this happens in a country member of this important organization. Before I give the floor to the audience who might have questions, I will first give the floor to Madame Ambassadeur, our former chairwoman of the Assembly. She can maybe conclude a little, and she for sure has also interesting things to say.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to thank Emin for having contacted me, because we have been in contact for some time to organize this side event. And thank you very much to Yves that he co-sponsored this side event. And I apologize for being late, but I had other commitments. As you know, we have, for the moment, a very difficult situation in our assembly. I would like to apologize because as a president of the Parliamentary Assembly, I wasn't able to solve problems. When in the beginning of my, or nearly at the beginning of my presidency, Azerbaijan took over the chairmanship of the Council of Europe, because that is in alphabetical order. So I thought it would be the opportunity in order to solve problems. And I had the visit, I went to Azerbaijan. We had a standing committee there. President Aliyev came to Strasbourg to address our assembly. And when I first went to Baku, I asked to see some political prisoners. And I avoided to say political because then they would have said immediately, well, the Council of Europe decided that there were no political prisoners. So I said prisoners, but I said whom I wanted to meet. And that apparently was not possible. So when President Aliyev came to the assembly, to address the assembly, in my office, I told him, and that was just at the beginning of my mandate, I told him, well, you see, Mr. President, I want to see some prisoners. And he said, well, there is a separation of powers in my country. And I said, well, but I want to give you the message, and my staff, they really don't know me yet. But if I want to do something, I'm not going to give up. So at my next visit to Baku, I had the possibility to go up to the prison far away, where I could then visit your husband. And I got a helicopter to go there. But of course, that didn't solve any problem, because despite the decision of the court here, already at the pre-trial detention and then reiterated, despite of that decision, Azerbaijan didn't allow Mr. Məmmədov to get out of prison. And I give you another example. I met Khadija Ismailova, whom I met in my office. And we spoke with human rights defenders. I think you were there, others in the room were there. And she told me, when I go back to Baku, I will be arrested. So I told her, let's take a picture together, then at least I can react immediately with a picture of you. When she got back to Baku, she was not arrested, but she was kept at the airport for 4 hours. And then she was released. 3 weeks later, she got arrested because apparently she pushed her partner to commit suicide. Then that charge was dropped, and afterwards they added new charges. That is beyond all what we in our criminal codes can have as procedure. So, and that continued, and we spoke about other prisoners. When I had the privilege to give the prize of the Václav Havel Council of Europe Human Rights Prize, we had Mr. Mamadi, who was chosen, but he couldn't come to Strasbourg at that day because he was still in prison. So I gave it to his father, and he made a very moving speech. I still, you know, that was one of the most intensive emotional moments I lived during my 2 years presidency. And I was so glad that I could see you live, and that we then could make a ceremony later on. But just to tell you, those 3 examples show that, in fact, despite all our efforts we put in, I didn't succeed. And I really want to apologize for that. But as I said to President Aliyev, if I have an idea, if I'm convinced of something, I continue. And that's why I'm sitting here, in order to continue to defend the values of the Council of Europe, Now, you spoke about the corruption affair. This, of course, is unacceptable, and we must make all the right as soon as possible. We should have started with that investigation, but unfortunately, some tried to postpone it, even to have an internal investigation in order to dilute. So those who are in that caviar diplomacy report, I wonder if they have something to hide. If I was in that position, I would say, well, immediately I want an investigation in order to have all the truth. This is not about persons, but this is about protecting our institutions and our values. And I said it before, I have, well, the feeling that there is even more behind, that there are some forces who try to destroy this house. And that's not because of this house that we have to fight, but because of those 820 million people we are representing, and to defend their fundamental freedom, because it's about the fundamental freedom and the freedom of press. So if we see the tendencies, also in member states of the EU for the moment, where NGOs, where they try to close down NGOs, that is not acceptable. And I hope that this, with that corruption affair and all the other affairs now in this house, will give us the strength to say, now enough is enough. And we are here in order to protect the Convention on Human Rights. So I'm really grateful to you, and I want all those NGOs in Azerbaijan and in other countries to continue. We need you. And we also need the press, because without the press to speak out, unfortunately the press very often only speaks about scandals. We have also positive aspects in this house, but we have to live with this. And I want to conclude in saying what I said also when I made a speech on the progress report. How can we ask for countries to combat corruption being the greatest threat to our democracies, if in our own house we are not able to clean it up? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Anne, for your intervention. And I just saw that another one from our colleagues has come here to listen. Mr. Frank Schwabe from the German Bundestag. Be very welcome here. Maybe you want to add something to this later. Otherwise, I will open up the floor to all of you who might still have questions to our guests. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Kutan. My name is Yuri Chibaz, and I speak on behalf of the Freedom Files Analytical Center and the Civic Solidarity Platform, a large NGO coalition. Well, first of all, I would like to pay tribute to our Azeri colleagues, both in the country and in exile, who have given all of us a role model of commitment and courage and perseverance. Thank you. And secondly, thank you, Ms. Brasov, Mr. Kutan, Mr. Schwabe, and others for your leadership in both leading the Assembly's work on the human rights situation in Azerbaijan and also on anti-corruption work of yours. I think that there is a very direct link, indeed, between the ability of the Council of Europe and the PACE in particular, and to address human rights violations and the situation of Wafa's husband and the indeed the plight of the Azeri colleagues who are under huge risk and growing, in fact. Importantly, we believe that democratic change in autocratic countries may only come from a combination of two factors: internal demand for change and external pressure. Goal of the autocratic regimes, like the one in Baku, is to prevent any change from within by repressions and shield themselves from the international pressure by undermining international organizations like PACE and influencing policies of democratic governments. Their ultimate goal is to stay in power indefinitely, as we see indeed through nepotism practices and the kleptocratic system in Baku, and enrich themselves, reaping the fruits of corruption and the international globalized economy. That's exactly what has been documented by many reports. We have released our own report lately, European Values, Bought and Sold, based on more than a year of research on international lobbying and corruption practices by the Azerbaijani government. It has been supported by the Civic Solidarity Platform, the Sports for Rights Coalition, and many of our Azeri colleagues. And the key discoveries of ours include that the Azerbaijan government has built a massive, truly massive lobbying machine using money stolen from the Azeri public through corruption to apply influence on policies and decisions of governments and international organizations. Importantly, arguments used by the regime in Baku include the economic role of Azerbaijan as a supplier of important energy resources to Europe. Azerbaijan being allegedly a role model of tolerant multicultural society and a stronghold of stability in a volatile region, and it being a victim of violation of territorial integrity and sovereignty as a result of occupation of Nagorno-Karabakh. Tools of lobbying are diverse. Lobbying and corruption are diverse and go much broader than gifts of caviar and carpets that everybody has been talking about. They include relatively benign lobbying through a network of public relations and lobbying agencies in Europe, funded by Azerbaijan in almost all major capitals of Europe, headed by former or current parliamentarians, including members of this House, think tanks, public events, cultural restoration projects funded by the Haydar Aliyev Foundation, including here in Strasbourg and the Cathedral and many other places, to paying for trips of deputies bringing businesses from their own countries, who then receive very luxurious contracts from the Azeri government and very likely pay kickbacks to these MPs who bring them. Funding of fake election observation missions. This is very important. And finally, direct cash payments, as evidenced in the case of the local volunteer, and in envelopes. So it's both bank transfers and envelopes, as evidenced in testimonies of Arif Məmmədov and Aleyla Yunus. Key impacts on this House has been on decisions on rapporteurs' mandates, appointment of rapporteurs, voting on resolutions, and developing this fake election observation business, involving PACE members, most outstanding of them being Alan Destex, chair of the Legal Affairs and Human Rights Committee, who runs a key organization in the fake election observation business, the European Academy of Elections Observation. Now this practice is followed by Russia and Turkey. We have civil society's demands include the following objectives. I will be concluding my remarks. Exposing this practice on all levels and punishing the culprits through investigation and legal action on all levels, including national jurisdictions. It's not only, should not end with only investigation here in the Assembly. The expert group here should include truly independent people with experience in investigation and ensure a transparent process, accountable to the public, and interact with the civil society. Secondly, it should establish a mechanism of strong safeguards against similar incidents of corruption. So it's not every time an ad hoc response to a case. And this should be done in the reviewed code of conduct. Restoring, very importantly, bringing it back to Azerbaijan, restoring a mandate on political prisoners in Azerbaijan. And ideally go beyond to mandate on political prisoners across the Council of Europe region, because we have, of course, now Turkey, Russia, and many others. And finally, reforming international election observation system that should be based only on long-term observation and based on UN methodology of election observation, not short-term visits with public media statements and no reports and no methodology. Just punishing the culprits now is not enough. The key goal is to strengthen international and national democratic institutions, including this House and national parliaments, to ensure stronger, consistent and principled pressure on the government of Azerbaijan and support to courageous Azerbaijani democratic and human rights activists. Thank you.
Thank you as well. I think we need to make a small rectification in what you said. It was all true, but I think you made a small mistake. We have to redress this.
Well, there might be a misunderstanding. You referred to Alain Destex, who
Yes.
was the chair of the Legal Affairs Committee, that's right. And then you said that he was leading an institute for observing elections. That is not Alain Destex who is doing it, but Steph Goris from Belgium, a former member of our assembly. To my knowledge, it is not Alain Destex. That doesn't excuse anything, but I want to have it right.
Madam Minister will respect the registration documents of the European Academy for Elections Observations, include Steph Goris as the chair,
Yes.
and Alain Destex as the secretary.
Yes, but I heard you saying that he was the chair. So
No, I didn't say
want
the
to
chair,
avoid
it's the
all-
leader. Yeah.
Leader, yes.
Yeah.
I want to avoid all
Okay.
all this.
Okay, they too were the founders?
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And good luck. And we continue.
Thank you.